You are listening to the Hire Fast podcast. In today's episode, I will introduce you to Attract. What Attract means in the S.M.A.R.T system framework. What promise do I want to fulfill to my employees and guests? What are the problems that we face with candidates? What things do I have to overcome to be effective? What change in my thinking can set me apart to compete? And can we quickly identify the candidates that we're looking for? I'm super excited to be here with you today. Let's do this.
The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Hire Fast podcast, a podcast aimed at educating you on hiring the right person for the right job and keeping them. Are you sick of spending precious time and energy hiring and training people just to have them turn around and quit? Then join Alan and his guests on Hire Fast as they teach you how to skillfully motivate and attract rock star talent. Now here is your host, Alan Daviduk.
Hello, I want to thank you for listening to the Hire Fast podcast. I really want this podcast to be a source for you to attracting, hiring, recruiting, employee engagement, developing, retaining, and to make the world better by helping your employees become rock stars. So the S.M.A.R.T system is an acronym, skillfully motivate, attract rockstar talent. Today we're going to be talking about Attract, and we're going to deliver this in 3 parts. What am I looking for anyway? That's what we're going to talk about today. The process, and then how to execute it like a ninja. So I just want to quickly recap the last six episodes that we did. The last 6 episodes were the second step in the process, motivate. And I know this is going to sound confusing, but motivate had us, even though S.M.A.R.T is a framework, motivate had a framework inside of it, right, to achieve the 2 most important things that we're after, employee engagement and employee retention. And the roadmap is called CARE, connection, affirmation, responsibility, and environment. And why does that even matter? It matters because 71% of our employees are disengaged. So what does that simply mean in simple terms, right? It means that if someone cares, they're engaged. If someone doesn't care, they're disengaged. The end. It's that simple. And why as leaders should we care? Why should we give a shit about this, right? Because it's costing this industry billions of dollars. And you can see the results of disengaged people everywhere. You can't get the productivity you need. You can't get the profitability you need without being able to build a high-performance team. And you can't do that without engagement. And what we talked about, the sum up, everything together in the last 6 episodes was about engagement, right? The higher your engagement, the higher of level of care. This is the secret sauce, and this is what CARE was all about. It's the foundation. It's the whole shebang of the S.M.A.R.T system. So I wanted to spend a lot of time on it. So today, though, we're here to talk about Attract. So Attract is, we've done all this hard stuff, right, with skillfully and motivate. Now we're positioned to attract better people. So what have we done? We'll recap it real quick in skillfully and motivate. So skillfully was, where am I at? Where do I want to go? We want to set some goals, some KPIs, measures, how to get there, right? What are the things that we have to do to get there? And we created this plan, the compensation plan, our big plan to get the people that we need. And if you remember, I told you about my company when I was with Dunkin' Donuts, with my family business. We needed 60 employees and we only had 40 all the time. We just could never get there, right? So we had this goal, and that's why I created the S.M.A.R.T system, was to achieve what I was after. I knew I couldn't get the results that I wanted unless I had the right people. And then Module 2, CARE, what we just talked about, was transforming the inside of the 4 walls, the culture and environment, to achieve that engagement, to get people to care, to make the environment so amazing that people couldn't wait to come to work. And this is what relieved a lot of my stress and pressure of people jumping ship and calling out all the time. So, the whole purpose of this is I have a promise that I set in place for my company that I wanted to deliver, right? And the promise was for all my employees to be fully engaged and care for our guests and to care for their coworkers. This is what I was after. So what does Attract mean? S.M.A.R.T is a framework, and Attract is one piece of the framework, but it's a lot of stuff, right? So Attract means, more than just being the third step in the framework. It means that how do we get those players that we need to win, right? How do we get it to win and thrive, right? How do we even know what we're looking for? How do we make better hiring decisions? How do we get the fits that we need, right? And stop making bad decisions when we hire. How do we flip the script and take back the control in the hiring process and get people to stop dictating to us? I would spend so much time in interviewing that I would be exhausted after, right? Because I was trying to put people in the box that I wanted when that wasn't who they were, right? And there's this big storm all the time, right? As business owners and leaders, that this is big storm that we can see all the time, right? And that storm comes over us really quickly. We lose a couple of people and everything goes to shit real quick, right? So as leaders, we're constantly trying to navigate around that storm or just go right through it as fast as we can. So also, how do we stand out? Right? How do we be unique in this whole process where people want to engage with us? And how do we create a candidate experience that's fun, sets us apart from everybody else? And how do we compete and stay in our own lane? Right? These are the things when I was creating this particular piece of the system. These are the things that were coming to me. I just don't want to be comparing myself to everybody else. I want to be in my own lane and do my thing, right? And how can I execute this over and over again? That's what I meant about executing like a ninja, right? And how do I get people to show up to interviews and stop ghosting me all the time, right? And what does that even mean? But the whole thing started with me getting over a fear of these stories I would tell myself all the time. I can't compete with the competition, right? This was a big one. How many times do you feel this? We can't afford to pay people more money. The reality is we're paying people money, right? Because they're coming and going so fast that we're paying more money than we ever have before. How can I play in the same arena with these big guys when they can give benefits and all these things that I really can't afford? What can I do to compete with them? How do I stay in the ring? And, why would people even want to come work here when there's so many people out there looking for jobs? And the job boards, they weren't helping, right? So let's talk a little bit about the job boards. I want to throw some rocks at these guys right now. So they all do the same thing. The Indeeds, the ZipRecruiters, the Hire Me's, the WorkStreams. They're very good at what they do, but they only do one piece of the puzzle. If this whole thing is a wheel, they're like a couple of spokes in the wheel. Think about like you're out in the pond fishing, right? And you put a fishing pole in with a worm, right? And you're trying to catch a fish. Well, here's the problem when you go on to Indeeds and ZipRecruiters. There's 1,000 other people doing the same thing. So the fish at the bottom of the pond, they're laughing at us. They're winning. They're like, wow, I can eat a worm anywhere I go. I can turn over here. I can turn over there. I got thousands of worms in front of me. And this is the problem. So when the average candidate, you wonder why you're getting ghosted, right? The average candidate, when they put in an application or they respond to an ad, they're blanketing out like 20 of them. They're responding to like 20 different ads, right? So if they, sign or connect up with the second person that they talk to, the second company, that's why they ghost you, right? They've already got a job now. You weren't fast enough. You weren't compelling enough. There's a number of reasons why, but the problem in this whole process is they're the ones that make all the money. They don't make any money by you not, you have to keep hiring people for them to make money, right? When that's how they get paid. So that's the problem with this entire process, right? So what happens when people ignore you? What do? You get stressed, you get pissed off, you say things like, oh, people just suck, right? And what does ZipRecruiter do for you when or Indeed, or all these job boards when you're in that situation? They don't help you. What they do is they solve these couple of problems and the rest is on you. So this is why I created the S.M.A.R.T system. I wanted to help solve every aspect of the problem from A to Z, not just, put you in a pool where there's a bunch of people, right? And then when you hire the people, now you've done all that heavy lifting. When you hire the people, they'll help you fill out the paperwork. That's it. They're done at that point, right? But your real problem is you have to keep hiring people, right? You have this constant need to keep hiring people. This is why we talked about care in the last episodes, because if you have engaged people and you retain the people, you don't have the need to keep hiring people, right? It's just like what they say in the medical industry, right? If you're sick, doctors make money because you have to keep taking the medicine. right? Same idea here with what's going on in this process. If you're able to hang on to your employees and they're engaged and they love being there, then you're going to slow down what you're doing in the job boards. So that's what we're after. That's a big part of Attract, is this entire process, right? This isn't just simple, like you just download an app and then boom, you just walk away and everything fixes itself. So what I had to do when I was living all this, right, is the same old thinking was getting me the same results. I would do the same plays, if you will, over and over and over again, right? I would put out hiring signs. I would put out piles of applications out on the counter at the store. I would do like a hiring table. How many times have you done this, right? We're doing a job fair at the restaurant today, which meant you took a table, you put a tablecloth on it, you put a little pile of applications, right? That was your job fair. Or you would say, I'm going to have a recruiting day. I'm going to sit in the dining room for 3 hours and, people can just walk in and I'm going to put it, one post on Facebook and then I don't get the results that I want and I think it's all a waste of time, right? There's so much more to this, right? And I actually, this was a really funny one. I had a guy when I was in the Dunkin' Donut world. He sent an email to me and he said, hey, Alan, I discovered this awesome thing. There's a program where we can hire convicts. Now, there's a lot of convicts out there, the guys that are getting out of jail that need a job and they need that chance to prove themselves. But historically, a lot of these guys, have problems, right? So we're trying to fix a lot of problems, not compound the problems. So it's okay to do this stuff, but you got to be super selective, right? That's all. You got to have a process to weed, the good ones and the bad ones out. And that's what we're talking about today. So, is it as simple as offering money, right? Just offer more money. This is what I've heard from a lot of people that I talk to. I'll raise my pay rate by a couple bucks an hour. Okay, well, that'll get you people, but will that keep the people? And sometimes when you offer more money, all you do is you bring the weaker, same people from over there, you just bring them over here to you, right? So they're going to screw the guy that's over there to come to you, and then guess what happens when the guy over there offers a couple more dollars? They're going to screw you and go over there. So that is not a very sustainable process. So you have to have a process that attracts and engages with the candidates properly, right? And learn how to make better decisions. That's what I mean by fits. So I've actually had people say to me, well, listen, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this 25 years. I get a feeling when I'm talking to someone. Okay. And, so you've been doing this for years and you get a feeling. Well, I have a question for you. What does a serial killer look like? You could be sitting right next to one. You could walk by a serial killer at the grocery store, right? Do you have the same feeling there when you walk by a serial killer? So you got to have a better process, man. What kind of people are you looking for? So I want people that are rock stars, right? People that are the best. But the reality is not everyone is a rock star, right? I remember when I would read books and consume content and do all this stuff, the gurus would talk about talent all the time. Talent. They'd pound it in you, right? But then it was all theoretical stuff, right? It was a bunch of ideas and theory. There was no action. Right? So what's the difference sometimes I felt between some of these guys and palm readers, right? It was like they were in the same bucket because they weren't giving me anything that I could take back and apply, right? It was a lot of generality, not very specific stuff, So there's differences between the candidates out there, and you have to be able to identify those differences quickly, right? So back to my promise, right? What am I after? I want my employees to be fully engaged and to care, connection, affirmation, responsibility, for our guests. And care, connection, affirmation, responsibility, environment, for their coworkers. When they have that type of relationship, this is what I mean by the storm, right? When someone calls out or quits, people step up and help. So that fulfilling this promise is what I'm after. So I said, okay, what the hell are other companies doing? So I called a friend of mine he was a consultant and he had a lot of clients. And I said, hey man, this is what I want to do. And I told him all about the stuff that I was working on. And I said, can you put me in touch with a couple of companies, a couple of people that I can kind of get a perspective of what they're doing and how they solve these problems, how they hire people, how they do it. So he says, I got two perfect people for you, and they're both opposite sides of the spectrum. Beautiful. So he sends me into the first company. And the first company was like a mid-sized company, mostly hourly employees. I met the owner, really cool guy, and he said to me, I said, what's your strategy? Like, tell me what you do. If you, I bought him lunch. I said, just tell me what you do. How do you hire and attract people? And he said, well, I'm a gold miner. And I'm like, oh boy, where's this going, right? He said, remember the pan like that the miners would use and they go out in the river? He goes, and I would scoop up the dirt and I got a lot of mud and rocks and I sift it around. And if I see something promising in there, I wash it off, right? If there's gold there, then, I keep it, right? But if it's not, if it's just, rocks and stuff, I just throw it aside. Okay. So what he's saying is, I hire everybody, right? I hire everybody, and then if I don't like them, I fire them, right? Or, we put so much pressure on them that they quit, they just leave, they never come back. I said, wow, that's kind of like what I'm doing now. That's what it feels like anyway. Maybe I'm not doing it's not tactical like you're doing it, but that's what I feel like's happening right now. So I didn't like that strategy, right? I can't get sustained results doing it that way. Besides, when you do that, the morale in the your business becomes super toxic, right? And that's super expensive. My revolving door was moving as it was. This guy's like got WD-40 on it, and the thing's going 100 miles an hour, and that's his strategy. So I was like, whoa, this guy sees the operation or the employees as tools, right? He doesn't even look at them as people. I don't know, maybe it's working for him. So I learned a lot from that interaction. The second interaction with the second company, this was a small company. They had a super reputation. Like everybody that worked there has been there like 15 years. So the other guy, it's the opposite. He only had one or two people there 15 years. Everybody else, turns all the time. This guy holds on to his people. So I said, man, what do you do? Like how do you achieve this? This is amazing. And he said, I don't attract and hire the best people. I was like, man, this is going totally a different way than I thought. He said, instead, I make them great. I was like, whoa. He called this diamonds in the rough, right? He said an uncut diamond, if you were to find an uncut diamond, it's got worth to it. But he goes, the real value in the diamond comes when you cut it and polish it and, you make it look like a real diamond, right? Now the value 50x's. And I was like, wow. He goes, so I only look for people, right, that I can polish. So if I'm interviewing someone and they're already a diamond, I grab them. But if I can even identify that I can turn them into a diamond, right, then I do it. So if the person in front of me is, say, a piece of coal, right, but I see a lot of value there, then I just apply time and pressure and I turn them into a diamond. Now, that was amazing, right? I learned a lot from that interaction. But it's extremely hard to do, right? And he even said this to me. He said, there's only me and the one other lady that helps me. We're the only ones that can interview. We're the only ones that can train. And he goes, sometimes it takes us a year to turn someone into what we're after. So his primary goal was coaching, right? And this can work well in a real small organization, but it's not sustainable when you have multiple restaurants or businesses, right? So, one guy weeded people out really quickly. The other guy, focused on people, and it was all about them. So two totally different ends of the spectrum. So I went back to the drawing board. I said, man, I learned, this interaction was incredible. It just really rocked my worldview. This idea of talent sounds good, but it doesn't, the gurus, what they talk about, it doesn't fit the mold of my business. What if I want good people? What if I have good people in front of me, right, that they just want a job? Is there a place for them too, right? What if they're not a rock star, and but they're good, right? They're good people, they're quality people, they have character. Can I bring them in too? There's a place for these people. So in this moment, I changed my intention completely. I have typical people that I want to talk to, and I want to go for the better people, right? So, but I just don't want all that drama, all that nonsense, right? All the stuff I need. And this is where the compensation plan came in, right? Because the compensation plan helped me with the accountability, right? People say, oh, we say this from day one. Well, I wanted to go before that. I wanted to say it from day zero, before they ever even work here, right? I wanted to say, this is what I'm after. Here's how we operate. Are you in or are you out, right? So this was the process I was after. Typical versus better people, and a way to sort through them really quickly. So what I noticed quickly with the typical people, right? These are your people that trade time for money. How many hours a week am I going to get? How many hours am I, going to get? This kind of stuff, right? But the better people were different, right? The better people cared about money, but it wasn't, like, it had to be part of the conversation, but it wasn't the only thing that they talked about, right? Schedule wasn't a super issue because they were flexible and they would give you what you needed, right? But they really wanted to understand training and learning, right? The roles, they wanted to understand the roles, right? Could I do this? Could I do that? Will you teach me to do this? These are the kind of conversations I was having at interviews. Culture environment was huge to them, right? They weren't that transactional piece like what was happening with the typical people, right? They wanted to know if there was a chance for leadership, right? Was there a chance for growth, both in the business and personally? Could we teach them skills, right? They really resonated with the mission that I had told you about, because I would tell that to every single person that I interviewed. And they really liked the idea of skills, transferable skills, things that they could take with them forever when they left here, right? And they really seeked out the connection. They didn't want to come to work and be robotic people. They wanted to engage with the team. And affirmation and recognition was huge for them, right? So if I could provide challenges today for people and promote opportunity tomorrow, man, we're on to something, right? But this is what I came down to, is that I have to stop interviewing, right? Interviewing is a kind of a robotic process. I need to recruit. I really need to create this decision tree, right? That if they're a typical person over here, then I'm going to take less time in the interview, right? I'm going to stick to the basic stuff, the compensation plan, XYZ, 1, 2, 3, right? But if they're the better person, I'm going to slow things down a little bit. I've got a diamond in front of me, or a diamond in the rough, right? I have a potential future rock star in front of me, so I need to take a little bit more time, right? So I have to shift gears, go up and down. I need to focus on the attractors, right? The things that they're focusing on, right? To bring them in. And the third part of the decision tree is if they're not a good fit, to walk away, but leave the door open, right? Because sometimes people make changes. They may be able to not do what I'm asking them today, but maybe they can do it tomorrow and it stays in the back of their head. Right, so and that candidate experience is so good that they're always thinking about it. They go somewhere else and they're like, man, I really like that guy over there, right? So here's the problem, guys. Here's the big problem today, that I can talk about this stuff for hours, but we're already at 23 minutes, so I'm going to call it today. But let's talk about Attract, the 3 parts. What am I looking for anyway? That's what we talked about today. Next week, we're going to talk about the actual process, the Attract process. So thanks so much for listening today. If you'd like to learn more about the S.M.A.R.T system, continuous improvement framework, and how it can help you attract, develop, and retain good people, then why do it the hard way? We're committed to getting you there faster. That's why we started this podcast in the first place. So let us help you translate and integrate the principles to get you results fast. We want to come in and work with you. You can visit me at getsmartsystem.com. You can email me at alan@getsmartsystem.com. You can call me at 1-888-3SMART5. If you haven't already clicked subscribe or follow below, please do so we can keep you up to date on how to hire fast. Ciao for now. See you next week.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.